My wife and I see ourselves as a team, and no task is above one another, and wherever we can do to help each other out, help the family unit, that's really where we want to spend our time. So you should not see it as, oh, I'm not willing to do that, or oh, that's not something I'm attuned to doing, or my parents didn't do that. It's your family. At the end of the day, you take ownership of that, and you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. My name is Krishna Nadella. I'm a 9-year employee here at Bloomberg Financial Products. I am a father of 3 and a husband of 1, and my story involves me taking parental leave during my wife's pregnancy for our 3rd child. That was more than the standard paternity leave at my company. In fact, in many ways, I took maternity leave, or as we call it, primary caregiver leave. My role as a father and as a husband is one that I think about a lot. It has never left me from the day I met my wife to the day I had children and to the day that I have been able to do this video. It's the focus of why I do what I do, both professionally and personally. And a typical day depends on whether it's a weekday or a weekend. On a weekday, I leave home before my kids wake up, so I'm not there actually in the mornings, but that makes it all the more important that when I get home, I'm there and I'm present to be there for my wife and my kids. And that'll entail helping them with their dinner, having family chats, talking about how our days were, and really making sure we get closer as a family, to giving them a bath, my kids that is, not my wife. And then of course, also ensuring that we have bedtime with them, reading stories, and making sure that they feel like we were spending quality time with them. A typical day at Bloomberg for me involves multiple aspects of my job in management. First and foremost, my duty is to my team to ensure that they're put in a position to succeed when they meet with clients and when they work with other sales folks internally. So that'll involve one-on-ones with them individually, understanding what they're working on, providing mentorship, providing guidance where appropriate, and of course understanding how I can help them be successful in their job. Additionally, in my own role, working with my senior management to ensure that they're getting the clarity in terms of what they're looking for from how we're doing from a sales standpoint, but also how we're doing from an execution standpoint, not just for today, but for the long term. Some of the key tools that I use as a father and role as a dad is the following: patience, humility, and listening. Patience because they are children, and children are learning themselves. So my expectations of what I'd expect of an adult cannot be applied to a small child who's still figuring out life itself. Humility is because at the end of the day, for a child, their world revolves around them, and you have to understand that. So being there for them and willing to do things you wouldn't normally do for them really goes to a lot of how they feel and value you in their world, which is, quite frankly, how they see everything. Having the ability to say, I'm not above doing such tasks. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and get dirty, and in some cases, literally, is a big part of being a father. What I have learned most about myself after becoming a working dad is time management. The ability to juggle multiple aspects of my life at the same time, realizing all have an importance, but all have to be given quality time. So it's not just about being there physically, it's also about being there mentally, being present, and being able to give the time that I do have, but also being honest and saying I can't give time to certain activities that I may have in the past. That's what I've really felt is the biggest thing I've learned as a father, as a working father to be exact. My career ambitions didn't change after having kids, but the management of how I get to those ambitions I think has. Whereas in the past, before having children, I wanted to get there as quickly and as fast as possible. Having kids made me realize there's a facet of my life that I really want to spend time and really be there and be present for. And that may have altered how I get to the end goal of my professional career, but that didn't change what I want to do ultimately with my profession. My ability to look at family and finances after having a family of my own hasn't changed too much. I think I've always tried to be thoughtful in terms of where I spend my money and where I spend my time. But I'm more mindful of the fact that there's more people involved than just myself, or even just myself and my wife. So do I need something that may in the past have seemed a little bit more frivolous? Probably not. And so having an honest conversation, doing the pros and cons, and ultimately asking ourselves, what is this the benefit for? If I could change one thing about my working week, it would be the idea that I could see my kids in the morning. I don't see them currently as of now, and I accept that and I realize that. But if I could, from time to time, be able to be there for pick up and drop off, be able to give them an encouraging word before they go to school, or just be able to help my wife out, most importantly, in terms of some of the physical demands, then that would be the one thing I'd love to be able to change if possible. One thing I think employers can do to help better facilitate work-life balance, and I don't know if this will happen in my lifetime, I sure hope it does, or at least by the time my children are adults, is the idea that not one parent is the primary caregiver during the time that they have with their child after they're born. The idea that both parents can take the same amount of time off to allow them to both bond with their child in the same way, I think would go a long way in terms of the development of that family structure, and ultimately that relationship. I was fortunate with my third child to take primary caregiver leave, and I saw a whole aspect to my family I didn't realize with my first two children. And the idea that my wife went through this for our first two while I went back to work made me realize that both parents need this time, and there's aspects that you can't even put into writing that are so integral and valuable to you as a parent as you're looking to see your new world and new role in the world. I would love for people to understand what my role as a father is in my family relative to culturally where I came from, which is India. I do believe that being present and being there for your family is important, as does every father, I'm sure does. But it's also about, as I said earlier, having the willingness to do whatever it takes to be there for your children. And it's not assigned by sex or gender roles, but more about, hey, is this what's ultimately going to make us successful? Being present, being there for my kids, the ability for you to do this interview with my kids one day and ask them, what was Daddy like? That ultimately will be what defines me as a parent. But I hope that the answer is that he was there, and he was there for us, not just when we needed him, but behind the scenes when we didn't even know what he was doing for us.